BFD Advisors here. We have Brolin, who's our B, Sharrin Fuller, that's me, I'm the F, and Duncan is the D. And today we are excited to talk about location. This is a huge thing in the world right now is, do you need a brick and mortar? Do you have to go into an office to do a job? Do you have to have a front door for someone to go into to do business? I say it depends.
Sharon is frozen. Sharrin was frozen during that.
I was frozen?
You're frozen.
Your location is bad because your Wi-Fi stinks.
Do we want me to keep going or do it again?
I think it's hilarious that
Awesome.
All right, let's keep it. We don't do retakes on the BFD.
We don't edit nothing.
No. I was saying that I think it depends. I think you only need to have a location if you have a physical product that somebody's coming in to buy right then and needs to take it home with them. If you don't have a physical product that someone needs to buy and touch and feel and take away with them, you don't need a brick and mortar.
I disagree.
All right, let's fight.
It just depends on your business model. Honestly, landed one of my largest clients for nothing more than I was close to his Google geography. You don't have to have the full big giant office anymore because most of my employees are scattered all over the US. Our main office is here. And so there's something weird about I'm in town. And so a lot of times I've had clients set up shell offices. You go to those Regis things where you do the little rent of a room, a PO box.
Offices, offshore accounts, whatever.
Yeah. Hide money, hide your location.
Some little mini tax shelters.
Yeah, but you can have, it depends on what you're trying to do. But if you want to be around affluent clients or around a manufacturing facility, people are still doing the Google research and they're still doing the search on the geography. But it's not necessary anymore.
They do. A lot of people do Google. Did you feel left out there?
Yeah, really jealous.
Everybody's got it on. Let's go.
This podcast is not even sponsored by ADP. This is just.
Oh, forget that.
They gave them to us and they're just so nice and warm and it's cold now. So,
it is cold.
It's almost like 50 degrees here. I am freezing.
Texas cold.
Cold.
I woke up and it was 37 and I'm in Vegas.
Speaking of location, maybe you've got 6 foot of snow and your location doesn't work anymore. So you need to have a backup plan. That could happen too.
Well, I will just say from a brick and mortar perspective, I know at least in the accounting industry, we've been all driven by brick and mortar. People come in, you meet people face to face, you do their tax return, which by the way, no one can do really effectively because they want to talk to you about everything that's going on in their life. You don't want to ignore them, but you actually have to do the return correctly.
Like at H&R Block, come in and let's get it done. And then you leave with your return.
Yeah, no. So my whole thing was like with COVID, I think gave people a whole different perspective on whether you need an office or not. I can tell you for me here at Powerful Accounting, I have some clients that still come in and I still service them. They come in, quiet Sharrin, I know what you're thinking. I don't service them. I just prepare their tax return, but they come in. No, you said something on the last podcast. I had like 10 comments, but I kept it to myself. So, but being able to do tax returns, I'll call it in peace and quiet right now, is really great for me. And now I'm not just saying about accounting industry, because it's everybody. It's any industry, anybody in business. You've got to make a decision whether you're going to have a brick and mortar.
Professional services.
Especially professional services. Do you want a brick and mortar presence? And so for me, I have this office, it's on my property. It's still brick and mortar of sorts, but I very rarely
you just like walk outside your house and you have like a she shed.
I have a really nice big she shed. I do. And I just have to do doggy poopy landmines. That's my commute. Like I have to make sure I'm, tossing around, like walking around the poopies and cursing out my husband for not picking them up. But otherwise, I feel like
we have a lady that comes on Tuesday. It's poop 911 Wendy.
Oh, I love that. What a great concept. If you love to pick up dog poop, you can go ahead and start your own business.
That's location based. So you don't have to have brick and mortar, but you still have to be somewhere.
Yeah. It's there's
certain things that you have, like the trash man has to go pick up but like professional services or even like online retail. So it's really interesting. I mean, malls are almost becoming a thing of the past, right? They're like graveyards. And it's all because I buy everything online. I went to go shopping a few weeks ago And I was out for like 5 hours and I came home with like 2 outfits. I'm like, what a waste. I would have rather overbought on these stores online, have them all send it to me, try it on, wear it at home, you know, with the shirts that I want to try it with, and then send 90% of it back, then I would do that again. And so my husband and the ladies at the UPS store were like, does she keep anything? I'm like, no, I'm buying everything. I'm buying like a brick ton of crap and I'm keeping one thing, but at least I didn't waste my time, right?
Mhm.
So anyhow, my point of that is I mean, retail. I mean, most of them, if they could just say, here's our inventory, here's one size of each. Come in, try it on, and then you place the order and you don't get it right then, but we'll get it to you next day. I mean, that's always a thing. I wonder if we're going to see that.
I'd be curious which of our, people that are listening to the podcast, what their types of businesses are and which ones they feel they require that. Because if you're manufacturing and distribution, of course, you've got to have a facility to handle that kind of stuff, right? There's certain limitations to things, but COVID created a lot of out of the box thinking on how can we do this differently. I've got one client that's got multiple locations of warehouses because it was cheaper to buy small little warehouses. And I say buy because he also does real estate investment. So he's bought this real estate that has value. He stores his merch there rather than the traditional big facility. It was a completely different model that he approached it with, where he's kind of brick and mortar because he owns it, but he's not because it's not really his storefront.
Those really
I've
are
seen
little
some really
tax
cool
shelters.
innovation over the last few years on the need for a space.
And
Yeah,
I
100%.
fight that accountants don't need it. I'm like, accountants don't need it. You don't need to be. There's so few people. I don't know. I like I said, I'm in my house right now. When we moved into this house, I wanted my office to be we have a 2-story and I wanted it to be upstairs in the corner. It's got a lot of windows that look cool. My husband's like, absolutely not. You will never come downstairs. You will wake up in the morning. You will walk to your office. You will stay in your office all day. At the end of the day, you'll yell at me to bring you a Hot Pocket, and then you'll walk to the bedroom. You'll never come downstairs. So we purposely put my office in the back corner behind the kitchen downstairs. So I have to get up and leave the part of the house. But heaven forbid I'd have to actually go somewhere. I don't think I could do it. I think I'd rather not.
I'm standing in an office. I found that I get better peace of mind and clarity and focus when I leave the house. Well, I'm good at breeding. What can I say? But we've got too many distractions. One sick kid, animal, lawnmower, delivery. Also, we do have meetings here from time to time, but I really, no joke, landed the wealthiest client I had because they happen to be close by. Now we are in a affluent area, but it's just one of those things that it created a presence. I've had and this happened early in my career, but when I had the firm, is people said, okay, you're a legitimate business. They came by to validate that you're a real business. And there's still enough of the segments out there where people want to validate that you're legit enough that you can have an office, which I find weird. But there's a marketing trick to having the office too that I've used and have talked to clients about.
What about you, Dawn? You're in your she shed on your property. So you're a hybrid between me and Sean, right? I'm on my house, but I'm out of my house. And Sean's like, I'm out of my house, but there's my husband yelling at the dogs right there.
Well, I definitely think for me, so every room in my house has been an office. Every room, right? Go from this room.
Did you write off 100% of your house as a deduction, Dawn? Because we need to talk about this because there's audit risk.
This is my tax office. This is my consulting office. I use all of them.
This is my thinking office.
Yeah, I know what that one is. That's in the toilet.
I got podcast office.
Well, and so for me, like when this building became available, when my dad got sick, it used to be he shed and like immaculate and like big, really big. And so, go big or go home around these parts. But I felt like I wanted to have that experience of getting out of the house and having a separate thing. I didn't want clients coming in my house anymore. And again, this was a lot of the times when people did that. People were, coming to you to bring things to you as opposed to, are you going to them or whatever it may be.
That is my nightmare.
Yeah. And I mean, and so I've had the combination of having a lot of staff here in this building and so on and so forth. And now there's nobody. We only we're a firm of 3. They're remote. And we still have the ability for people to come, bring things on occasion, or sign a 433 if we're doing an offer and compromise, whatever, because they have to physically sign it, which is a pain, and they happen to be local. But For the most part, I just want this space, like Sean said, it's separate. I don't know what's going on in the house. I don't want to know what's going on in the house. I mean, we're empty nesters, but I don't want to know my husband sitting on the couch, because he knows if I catch him on the couch, he's a dead man. You better be in your office working, boy.
I am the same way. My husband's redoing the whole entire landscaping right now, and on days when when his help isn't here, he'll take the day off. I'm like hell you are. Like, I don't care how much I love my job. You get up and you go do something.
100%. And I think that speaks a lot to brick and mortars. For those who don't have brick and mortars, are working out of their house on top of each other, not in a good way. And we're both working, or I know for myself, when my husband wasn't working, at least when I came out here, I didn't know what he was doing. But when I worked in the house and he wasn't working, it infuriated me.
Yes. I guess I'm in the back corner.
Right?
I don't know. I'm like, you know what? I get in and I'm like for 8 hours, and sometimes 12. And then when I come out, he'll usually pop in. It's like 8 o'clock at night. Are you going to come out? I'm like, oh, I guess I should.
That I just realized both of you and I, we're all motivated to get stuff done. There's where we go is really about personal choice, because no matter where we are, we're going to work, right? We're going to be productive. It doesn't fit everyone. And of course, COVID revealed not everybody can work from home. So my wife works at a large company, and the lists of scams people have committed, going to a meeting, blurring the lens and putting a pair of glasses on, was enough to convince everybody that somebody else was in the meeting. So here's what the scenario was. Group meeting, 15 people on Zoom. The guy couldn't make the meeting because he wanted to go to lunch. So he sent his girlfriend to sit in on a meeting with glasses on and a blurry lens. And so he was attending meetings, but really she was attending meetings to confidential corporate information, which is ridiculous. Not everybody can be counted on, which is terrifying to think of.
Put on a Zoom background. Nobody will know where the hell you are. Like, you could be sitting on the beach and you've got a Zoom background.
But the point is but the employee themselves. So if I have employees, and they're scattered all over the US, and I love my employees and they're awesome. But you know what? I've actually had to already let people go because they were not doing the job completely and responsibly. And so that's where the brick and mortar starts to come back again, because there's a different way of acting when you know your boss is right there versus.
But Sean, the people that aren't going to do their job aren't going to do their job when you pay them to come, and they're just going to sit at their desk and play on Facebook and do. If they weren't going to do their job at home, they sure as crap weren't going to do it.
You would think so. I feel like there's a middle ground though. There's the deadbeats that will always go out of their way. There's the motivated, but that spectrum of in between, which is where a lot of people reside. Because if you know you're going to get away with it, you know you'll get away with it because you work from home. Would you try to pull it off at work? Not really. This guy that had his girlfriend put on glasses and sit in a meeting, you can't fake that when you're in the office. There's a middle ground that's a recapture that still works. And it depends on the type of employees you hire. I, of course, don't want to hire that kind of employee, but there's so many people needing bodies to do work that they have to settle. And sometimes I'm having this conversation with clients that they're having to do the brick and mortar so that they can have that visual accountability. Now, CPAs, we're terrible about assuming everybody's going to suck at their job and we have to oversee them. That's not the case either. There's extremes on both sides, but the rest of the world sits in the middle. And so I'm seeing some people returning back to the office, even if it's partial, just to get that accountability because they actually fear their employees will mail it in because they're gone all the time. And so I had to let somebody go that the more time that went, the less productive that individual got. And there was no amount of accountability I could do from 5 hours.
I mean, if you have KPIs, you hold everybody up to it immediately.
That's how you know that's how you know they're going. But this particular person had great reviews from a previous job when they were working in the office, and suddenly they became irresponsible. I mean, think about how many people do we know that would just get away with more stuff because you can hide behind the computer.
So we just let somebody go because she was moonlighting. So we're 99% sure she never quit her last job. She just took on our job too. Yep. And for 3 months, she took off from the 7th through the 10th. And we're like, no, you can't take that off. She goes, well, I have to. You don't have to pay me for it then. I have to. It's for a class I'm taking. We're like, we are accountants. the closes are done. You cannot take the 7th through the 10th 3 months in a row. You are the senior. And she kept doing it. And we're like, then we started auditing her trail and looking at everything. And she's getting on it in the morning and at night. So I'm like, she didn't quit her job, and she's taking those 3 days off because she's in charge of the close and she's doing the close. So we kept her on as long as we absolutely needed her and found a replacement and said.
So I ask you, if she was in an office and had to show up, do you think the performance would have been any better? You would have caught her sooner?
I think she would have logged in and done her work because she worked remotely for the other company. I think she would have logged in and done her work remotely as well. I don't think it would have made a difference. I think people that are going to do that, I think are going to do that regardless, especially now in this new. Now, if there was no such thing as remote and she wasn't remote anywhere, then no. But now we're just going to find people that are going to take advantage. But as long as your business is set up correctly and you can see your red flags, you can stop that pretty quickly. I mean, we know.
That's what I was thinking is your KPIs will drive it. If you're in the office, you can have IT controls that can do that.
Oh,
and nobody's perfect.
Even not in the office.
Perfect.
We can see everything, where they're logging in, when they logged in, how they logged in, and how long were they moving. I mean, we don't want to look. I just was on the Intuit podcast with Jason Stein, and we were talking about this, but the minute you have to start looking, the minute I have to start looking at the audit trail of my team, is the same thing as I'm having to sneak into my husband's phone at night, right? The minute you do that, the trust is gone. You already assume, and your gut instinct says you're going to find something there. And if you want to find something, you're going to find something. So to me, the minute I got to start doing that, it's already done. But now I'm just solidifying what I already know and proving it to you. But I don't ever look. I never look. I just want to trust my team. But if you give me a reason not to trust you, man, me and my ops gal, we're going full on detective.
Well, since we're skewed to service industries, what industries have to still have a brick and mortar? Like, is there anything that jumps out as like, there's just no way you have to have everybody showing up? Is there anything that you know of that you've dealt with?
Everybody, I think everybody, that's pretty broad, but do they still just have people that have to show up? Absolutely. I mean, like, think about
more show up than more, I would say more than 50% of your staff has to work at the office.
Dry cleaners. I don't know why that popped in my head, but dry cleaners was one of them. Certainly well, actually pharmacies probably don't even have to. If you've got these mail-in pharmacies, they now can do the mail-in. You don't even have to really do that.
So you still have the distribution center. So you still have to have some pharmacists fulfilling it.
Yep. But does it have to
be on your house? I think that's like really regulated. So doctors.
Right, doctors.
I mean, there is a lot of online remote doctors, but I mean, if you're like, hey, I need you to check out this weird
mole on my butt.
You have to.
That's impressive what you just did.
I was gonna pull it over, but I don't want those kind of followers on here. I was gonna say, when you zoom in, you're like, can we get a zoom? And I need to. Yes, ma'am.
No, I mean, obviously retail stores. I think of like the local small businesses that have retail establishments that are selling product
anything that's a product, any product-based service, and I need to touch you for things to happen, health, some nutrition, food, any product absolutely has to. You can't remote it. Now, accounting, I wouldn't even remote in if you were an accountant, like in charge of a restaurant. I would say, no, you need to go in. There's so much paper, there's inventory. If it's a product-based company, I feel like people need to be there.
So you think about the restaurants, those people have to be there in order to serve food. You have to have a human. Well, I know that there's you can always go into the rabbit hole of.
I've got HelloFresh at my door right now. I just got the notice.
Right. It's like, so we know that there's a combination of, even in the retail industry, maybe only, on e-commerce, they don't have a physical brick and mortar place. You've got your restaurants you can go up to one of these kiosks and push, I want a pizza, and out the pizza comes. Like, I get that stuff is coming and a little bit more popular, but you still always have, people still need human interaction. And those types of industries that require human interaction and, go to get your food or whatever, your people, hey, restaurant people, you got to be there in order for us to get what we need. So I think there's a combination, but, at the end of the day, the landscape's changing and there's different opinions and different mindsets. And I think, if we're going to do key takeaways, I'll go first. A key takeaway for me is that it really does depend. It's kind of an accountant's favorite answer and an attorney's favorite answer. It depends, but it does, depending on what your vision is for that business. Is your vision to be a place where people come? Then you need a brick and mortar. If it's what I really like now, I've kind of like really sold on all 100% remote accounting, though I will go to my client's office or to their space and learn more about that. Oh, I didn't even realize you guys look at all this inventory. We've never counted inventory at the end of the year. I got to show up in some of those cases, right? So my key takeaway is it really depends, in my opinion, on the vision of the business. Who are they trying to serve, and what does that look like best for them? Sharrin, like we talked in other episodes of whatever makes you love what you do. If you don't love to meet with people, then you should be a remote firm. If you want to meet with people and you love to have that interaction, then have a brick and mortar place. And either way, you can have a combination. Either way is okay.
Yep, I agree. That's my key takeaway as well. Do what makes you happy. Makes me happy knowing that I can wake up out of bed and not wear pants and come downstairs. It makes me happy knowing that if I have to meet with a client, I could turn on my Zoom filter because I didn't put on makeup or brush my teeth, and they will never know that. So those things make me happy, and I'm able to perform my job much better and more efficiently because I'm not being sidetracked. I'm a very social person. So when I go into the office, I'm talking. I don't even want to work. I want to go to happy hour. So for me, again, you're going to hear me, I guess, say that a lot. Do what makes you happy and makes you love doing your job.
I have two that we really haven't even touched on, but I want to bring them up. Is one, the concept of this is the way it's always been. We don't have to adopt that. And this is true of anything. That'll be a theme we talk about all the time, is that's just the way it's always been. Be creative on what your business is. Maybe you do need it, maybe you don't need it, but don't be locked into whatever tradition says it was, because we saw the last several years, doesn't have to be. And that's where the innovation comes from. But the second one is, I actually just realized I had a conversation with a client this morning, and we were talking about, does he need a space to go, or can he go full virtual? Does he want to lease a space, or does he want to buy a space? And the conversation we got into is now the real estate investment piece of it. Brick and mortar still has value. Real estate still has value. It still goes up in value in many cases. And so you can also consider in your business model, maybe you are a nail salon, but if you're a nail salon that owns the building, we need people to be there to do the nails, but now you also are a landlord. But if you're a law firm that owns the building and you decide you want to go fully remote, you still have this revenue generating office that you can turn into. So not forgetting that the brick and mortar has this secondary value beyond just, I have to do this. So jettison this is the way it's always been done. Start to think differently, but don't forget that there is intrinsic value. Now, I happen to rent this space. I've owned all of my offices up until this point, but this space was a Class A building, a really good deal. I'm actually renting my old office for more than what I pay for this. So what the heck? I'll just go ahead and do that. There's business choices that go with it. But it really, you touched on it. What suits you? What works best for you? That's what I want to throw out.
Love it.
Sharrin, you wrap it up, buddy. This is your episode. Like, what are you sitting back for?
Well,
flip the hair.
Say an F-bomb. No, don't. Or do, I don't care. Well, that was a fun episode. Gave me, hopefully, you guys a lot of ideas of other topics as well. If we're talking about something and you want us to elaborate on something, please email us in. We will, we are always happy to talk about things that our listeners want to listen to. Don't forget, so you do not miss any episodes, to go to bfdadvisors.com and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us individually. We each have our own individual platforms as well, which you can find on our website. We're all really, not only are we a BFD, we're actually all kind of really funny. So I think that we're a good follow.
Don't judge me on my looks. That's mean.
I wasn't going to go there, Sean, but you did. So whatever. So thanks everybody for watching, and I hope to see you next week.